All right. So, anyways, thanks for joining the session. My name is Adam, and in today's session, we'll basically talk about the what and why of DevOps. So basically, I'll touch base on what is DevOps, and I'll talk about why DevOps is so important, and what an organization needs in terms of DevOps. So what are all of the things that we have to know from DevOps, and what tools are that we have, and as part of a course. So for someone with some knowledge or without some knowledge, how is that you can get into this concept? What are all the things that you need to know? So those are the things that I'll be touch basing for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Okay. So feel free to ask any questions in between, or if you have any doubts, we can have a discussion at the end. All right. Or please let me know if there's any specific topic that you would like to discuss, and I'll be happy to talk about it. So is there anything else that you would like to talk specifically? If not, I can get it started.
I think we can start.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So now, before we get into the technical part, let's come to the first requirement where, why we are going into this new changes. So if you look at the company or an organization, now currently there's a lot of competition where different kind of startups to an existing, a larger organization trying to widen their expertise onto different domains. So being in that way, now for an organization to sustain in the market and also due to a lot of changes in the technology, what is the most important thing that an organization looks at? So from the first point of view, the time of whatever that they're delivering. So regardless of whether they are into some kind of service or they are into a product related company. Now, whatever that they are doing has to be delivered to the customer or to an end user. So that is when the time in which they are trying to deliver these services of theirs to their end users or the customers has to be reduced as soon as possible, or it's like trying to deliver their end results to the customers as soon as possible. Piyush, can you please mute?
Hello.
Hey Piyush, can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, myself Piyush Pankania. I'm a developer, software developer, and
Okay,
hello.
I can hear you, Piyush.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Bhumika.
Hey Bhumika.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm joining for the first time. I'm seeking for a job right now and training, like taking this DevOps training.
Yeah, thank you. Again, that's a reason. Since there's too many people, I didn't get introduced into each and every one, so that's a reason. So I'm going to touch base, for the next couple of minutes on what is DevOps and what an organization is looking for in DevOps, and in that, what is that we have to learn to get into this DevOps, and what are the tools specifically that you need to know, and what are the things that you have to learn, and what is that we are providing. So these are the things that I'll be touch basing in the session for the next 30, 40 minutes. So just started. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in between or at the end of the session.
Sure, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. And I'd request
Uh,
everyone to go on mute, please.
Okay.
just 1 second.
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, this is Shrikant, and I'm a new joinee of Unigo IT.
Yeah, Shrikant.
So I didn't have any of your introductions. May I know actually who is the organizer?
Okay, this has been organized by Intuition. So my name is Adam, and I'm part of this institution.
Okay.
And this is a demo session, basically to give an understanding for people who are interested to get into the DevOps domain.
Okay. Thank you. The Adam.
Yeah.
The name is Adam, right?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Your name, I'm just saying your name. Is it Adam?
Yeah, it's Adam here.
Okay, thank you, Adam. You can continue.
Okay, no problem. Can you please go on mute, Piyush?
Yep.
I still hear some background noise. Okay, that's better. Thank you. So I was just starting with the point that because of the current competition and the status of the market, an organization needs to deliver whatever is their end result to the customer as soon as possible. So regardless of whether they're creating a product or they are trying to maintain a service. So what is required from a customer or from an end user is that their services are delivered to the customers as soon as possible. So that's the most important thing. Now, attach it to that quality. Now, let's say that a competitor is coming into the market and he's trying to deliver a product. And if as a company, if we focus on delivering something quickly before our competitors doesn't mean that we have to compensate on the quality. So at the end of the day, again, the customer looks at the quality along with the time. So along with faster delivery, we also have to focus from giving a quality result. So that's why whatever product or a service that we are giving to our customer, it has to be of higher quality. Now, the other most important thing along with these two, what a company looks at is on the cost side. Because now, let's say earlier an organization was trying to deliver something in 6 months of a period. Now, the same thing, because of the changes, they are trying to focus to give it, let's say, on less than 2 months or about a month. Now, by saying that, we have drastically reduced the time as well as keeping the higher quality as expected. Now, it directly proposes to the cost, whatever that we have put into maintenance or into the production of it. So now, if a company is trying to spend too much of cost on maintaining or on the production, then again, their selling point of their services or a product will always be higher. Now, because of that, once again, there will be a problem where they will not be achieving the expected benefit. Now, this is the reason where we would be hearing a lot of recession or cost cutting. So, at the end of the day, now because of the competition and to sustain the market, if they have to cut down the price, then ideally they'll be good doing a cost cutting within the organization. So that's why now the major point what a company is looking at, how is that you can deliver everything faster and quality. Now that is something which is there from a longer time, but along with it, their cost of production and the maintenance has to be reduced drastically. Only then they can sustain in the market. So that's why it's not just only these two. The cost also has to be reduced at to the maximum extent. And finally, along with all those things, they also have to focus towards outages. Now, what do you mean by outage? As we know, problems are inevitable in an organization. Like, there might be a power outage, there might be a network issue, or there might be a software issue in a particular machine. And outage is a duration where we are trying to keep the system idle to get the things done or to fix the problems whatever we are facing. So that way, now if within an organization or a service which we are giving to a customer is being stopped because of some problems that we are trying to fix or because of some maintenance, then again there's going to be a loss of productivity. So in that way, organizations are looking at a time where we can try to fix everything as soon as possible. So an outage has to be reduced to the maximum so that the business doesn't get stopped or the productivity doesn't get stopped. So that's what, from an organization, these are the major four factors which are driving the business. So keeping this in mind, every organization are looking for a solution by which they can get all the four of them together. So what is that they have to do? Now, keeping these in mind, on the other side, who is going to get all these things done? So basically, we as engineers who are working in the organization have to get this. Now, if you look at an organization, within an organization, you can broadly classify the people who are working in an organization into two groups. So one, we can call them as a development community or a development group, and the others, non-development group or the administration group. Now, if you look at the development group, the people who are basically involved in creating a product or releasing a product will be part of the development group. And the other side, the administrators, are those people who will be responsible for taking care of a machine or some kind of application maintenance will be part of that administration group. And if you take development group, who and all will be part of the development group? So we'll have people like developers or programmers, and then test engineers or QA engineers, and then product managers. You'll be having release managers. You'll be having documentation engineers. So like this, anyone who is focusing on developing a product and releasing a product. And on the other side, on the administration group, we'll be having system administrators, network administrators, database administrators, web administrators, or any specific application who is going to be administering it. So that way, anyone who is taking care of a machine or an application maintenance will be part of the administration group. So this is how, from an organization, they'll be broadly classifying the engineering group into two groups. Again, depending on the company, there might be further subgroups, but from an organization I'm talking about, majorly, you can divide them into two business groups. Now, for a company to get these factors being implemented, they need to understand what are the problems that these two groups are trying to face. Because for a company, if they have to drive a business, they have to solve the problems from both these groups, because both these groups together have to work, and that is when they'll be getting a product release or a service being given to the end user. So that way, now, before we try to think about a solution, what is that we have to get in order to obtain all those things, let's try to spend some time in understanding what are the problems that they are facing individually, and then let's focus about what is that solution which we can give for that. So taking only the first group, that is the development group. Now, what is that they will be doing on day to day? So if you say the development group, as I said, these are the people who will be trying to create a product and release a product. So whatever steps that is needed inside it would be done by this group. And in this, they'll be going through a software development lifecycle, or they'll be following a SDLC. Now, when they are going through the software development lifecycle, it all starts when a particular developer or a bunch of developers will be working on writing a code to achieve a particular functionality or a feature of a product. Now, when they write the code, it is not just one person who will be working on that product. There will be many other products along with them. They'll be trying to create a product. Now, when each developer is working, they will be working only on a piece of the product or only a part of the product. That way, if we have to give something to the QA, a QA needs a complete product. And when I say a complete product, a product can be created only by accumulating or integrating all the changes these individual developers have done. So that way, even though if one developer has completed his work, he or she has to wait until all the other developers have completed the work. So only then we will try to integrate all the changes and then give it to the QA as a single product. Now, like this, the more number of developers come into the picture for a particular product, then there will be a lot of waiting period where we have to put to ensure that we give everything together as a product to the QA. So at this stage of the development, you can see many developers are trying to being idle by waiting, or even the QA has to wait until we do this integration where we have all the changes done by the development. Now, once we try to integrate at a particular point of time in a day, then we'll be creating a product and we'll be giving it to the QA for testing. Now, let's say that while we are trying to do a deployment or testing, then if there is an error, once again, now we have to spend ample amount of time in figuring out what went wrong at this stage. Because when I say there is something wrong, there could be a problem in any one of the developers' changes that has been done. Now, simply if you assume if we have 10 developers, now if there is a code which is failing, how do we know which developer caused the problem? So that is why, once again, we have to spend a lot of time in debugging or triaging what exactly went wrong. And then we need to find out whose code is causing the problem, and then we'll be assigning it back to the respective developer to fix. So like this, the cycle keeps moving on until each and every bug has been detected. But by the time you achieve, if you see, the total duration that you have taken to release your product will be quite lengthier. So that's when they'll be spending too much of time in determining all the bugs, and the quality, if you have to ensure in a better way, then it's going to take a lot of cycles to complete all the testing and the development work. Now, is it the only thing what they'll be doing? No. Because of the competition in the market, as I was talking about some time back, every company has to do a lot of parallel releases. So parallel releases means when you're working on one kind of release, a company has to do another release. For instance, let's say that your company is working on a mobile application. Now, initially they would have planned for doing a release for a particular Android-based version. Then suddenly they think that, why is that we have to do only for an Android-based release? We can also do it for an iOS platform. So like this, you might be doing a release parallelly for different customers, or a product which has already been released, there could be some problem. So we have to fix that also. So along with the existing release, we might also have to do some kind of bug fix or a maintenance release on a previous release what we have done. So this way, the development group will be under tremendous pressure to do many parallel tasks to achieve the releases. So this way, if you look, they'll be spending too much of time to get everything done. So that way, the time taken will be quite larger to complete the cycle, as well as to keep the quality higher, then you have to put in too much of testing and it takes a lot of time. So that's why quality and time is going to be taking a lot of time. Now, from a higher level, if you look at the other side, that is the administration group. Now, the administration group are also called as operations group because they are the one who are going to deal day in, day out with the systems. So that way, the administration group is also called as operations group. So what is their life cycle and what do they do? So there, if you look, there will be a administrator where the responsibility of the administrator is to take care of a machine or to take care of an application which is running in a machine. Now, in this, the primary requirement what they have to fulfill is to ensure that the machine is up and running, which means any point of time, if an end user is trying to connect to this machine or an application inside it, it should be running. So that way, the primary responsibility of the administrators is to ensure that all these machines and services are up and running. And along with it, they also have to do a lot of maintenance tasks. Now, a maintenance task can be specific to an operating system level, like updating a particular OS library or updating, patches, taking backup of the content which is available, or creating new users, or deploying some kind of files or installing or uninstalling an application. So there could be something specific to the operating system level, or there could be something specific to the application level. So that way, now for each machine that is being taken care by an administrator, they'll be responsible to maintain all those things. Now, along with it, they'll also be responsible to make sure the machines are healthy. So when I say the machines are healthy, what it means is if a user is trying to connect to a machine, and in that, if while doing some task or while working on an application, if he faces some issue because of which the time that he's taking to finish it is quite increasing, or if the machine is not able to perform as the user is expected, then it literally means that the machine is not healthy. So that is why it is not just sufficient that if the machine is running and a user is able to access the machine or the application. But what is more important is, along with accessing the machine and application, the user might be able to do the task as it is expected. So that is why we need to check whether the machine is in the right condition as we are expected. So that way, there could be issues in the network, there could be issues in missing libraries, there could be issues in the RAM, or there could be an issue on the disk space. Anything that is needed in the machine by the user should be available. So that is also quite important, where an administrator has to ensure that the machine is in a healthier condition to give whatever the tasks and the performance what a user is expecting. So that way, now these are the tasks which a user will be taking care from the administration. But as the number of usage grows, the number of machines will also be growing. So that is when the number of tasks what they have to maintain will also be increasing, because every machine will be unique in terms of the architecture of the machine as well as whatever the applications that we have in the machine. So that is why now the administrators have to do lot of tasks, even though it might look like a small task, but the number of tasks that they are going to take care will be too huge, or maintaining will be quite higher. So that is when they also have to put in too much of effort. So that way, now the major problem what the operations or the administration group will be facing is high availability. High availability means any point of time, all the machines and the applications should be available. And in case if there is a problem, how quickly are you trying to fix it? So that way, the maintenance effort has to be reduced, and whatever the cost that has been involved in maintaining should also be reduced. So that's the problem that the administration group or the operation group will be facing. So with all these problems, now if you go back, what is that an organization has to do where they have to improve to overcome the problems that is being faced by these two individual groups? So that is when one of the solution which the market is moving towards is what we call it as DevOps. So what exactly is DevOps? So if you see, DevOps acts as a bridge between these two groups, that is the development group and the administration or the operation groups. And this solution that the organization has been moving towards is not an individual tool related problem that you're trying to fix, but it's a solution which an organization is driving. Please keep that in mind. So it's not like we have a particular problem in one part and we are trying to automate it. Now, DevOps is a culture which is being driven by an organization to obtain all the factors, whatever that we were seeing initially. So that way, now DevOps is a culture which is being driven by an organization, in which what we are going to do is we collaboratively work between these two groups. So rather than working in silos, what the DevOps culture talks about is we have to work together collaboratively in such a way that we try to automate all the tasks, whatever that we are doing from the beginning to the end of the delivery of a product or a service which is being handled. So that way, whatever problems that we have within it, we have to try focusing on automating as much as possible. So such a kind of culture which an organization is trying to drive to overcome all the problems is what we call it as DevOps. So again, DevOps is nothing related to a particular tool. It is actually a mindset in which now a company wants everyone not only to just focus on only one area, because as of now, we could have been only a developer, or we could have been only a QA person, or I could have been an administrator taking care of a machine or an application. Now, what an organization wants is, rather than focusing on only one area and try to fix it by doing some kind of automation, through the DevOps culture, we have to collaboratively work and focus on both the sides of the organization requirement. That is, we have to focus on what are the problems that we have in the development and try to fix. And for that, whatever is the system requirements and how is that you are going to maintain. So that also has to be taken together. So that's why we call this new culture as DevOps, because you're collaboratively taking care of both the development requirement as well as the system requirements, whatever is needed to provide a end-to-end solution. Okay, so in that, what is that we are going to do? We are going to provide an end-to-end solution to all the requirements, in which we are going to do complete automation as much as possible. Okay, so that culture which is being driven by an organization is what we call it as DevOps. So talking about DevOps as a culture, what is that we have to do, newly? Because as we know, the software industry is there for a lot of time, or not quite a lot of time, and then people have been doing some kind of task already. So what is that they have to do differently? The first thing is we have to work collaboratively, and the second thing is try to focus on automation as much as possible. Now, in this, what DevOps says is that to focus on following industry's modern practices or some kind of best practices through which we will be able to get a better solution. So that way, now DevOps focuses on following modern software processes and adapting to best practices, in which we should be using some tool which will help us to get a better solution. And in that, our focus is not just to do automation, but in that, how effectively you are doing the maintenance of it. Because now, let's say you purchase some software to reduce some time in a task. But if you are putting in too much of cost in maintaining that application, once again, the cost of the production is going to be quite higher. So that is why, as an organization, it's not just about thinking on doing an automation, but how effectively you're going to manage. So that's the reason, as I said, DevOps is a culture where we are going to follow some modern methodologies as well as adapt to best practices which is available in the industry. So in that, if an organization has to follow or adapt to a DevOps culture, so the first thing now, as we saw, that we have two groups, one is the development and the operation group. So what is that you have to do with this group? So for the development group, now to overcome the problem in terms of the time and the quality, now DevOps says to adapt modern software development methodologies like agile methodology, using which they'll be able to cut down huge tasks into smaller and smaller tasks, or basically the complete product can be broken down into smaller and smaller components, and where they'll be trying to work in a agile way of development. And in that, the DevOps says to implement certain best practices like continuous integration and continuous delivery. Now in this, what we are going to do is, in a product, we are going to put the product into smaller and smaller components and try to work on all the requirements of the development together. So that is when in a continuous integration, all the people who will be working as part of the product release will be working together, in which as soon as a developer does a change, rather than waiting until the next developer is completing his work, in the concept of continuous integration or continuous delivery, as soon as the developer completes his work, immediately it will be taken to the testing, where we will be integrating with all the other changes at that point of time. Go ahead and do a testing and verify whether everything is fine. And in case if it is needed, you can go ahead and even do a delivery of the same thing to your customer. So that way, now you're going to create a pipeline in which right from the beginning, if a developer does a change, to the point that change will be integrated, tested, and verified. And if needed, you're going to deliver it to the customer immediately. So, such a kind of cycle in which you're going to continuously integrate the changes, whatever the developer has done, and try to deliver is what we call it as a continuous integration and delivery. So by adopting these kind of modern practices, now the productivity will always be higher because we are not putting in a lot of time in waiting. As soon as a developer does a change, immediately it will be verified and it will be deployed to a production if needed. So that way, if there is a problem, we can always try to fix it at the same point of time. And because of that, the waiting period will also be reduced, and the cycle time which is needed to fix all the problems will also be reduced. So eventually, the productivity will be increased. And at the same point of time, as a company, we can focus on parallel releases because for every developer who is doing a change, we are trying to implement this cycle. Now, again, because of this, if there is no problem in a change what a developer has done, he would be immediately notified within, like 10 to 15 minutes after he has done his work. So now, in case if there is no problem in what he has done, he can go ahead with his parallel release or the another task, whatever that he has given for him for a parallel release. So that way, we can always focus on what is needed in terms of parallel releases. So that's again will help us to reduce the time on the release cycle. So this way, by adopting the modern software development methodologies and best practices like continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment through DevOps, we can ensure that the quality of the product is higher, as well as the time to deliver the product will be quite reduced. Now, coming to the other side. So as I said, DevOps is not only about talking on the development side. As the name says, we also have to focus equally on the operation side. So that is on the infrastructure management or whatever the machines that is needed for us, we have to also focus on that. That's what DevOps talks about. So that way, how is that we can effectively manage the infrastructure? So now, if you look in that, one of the major area where we spend too much in an organization is in procuring a machine and maintaining. So that way, now for any kind of environment requirement that a user has in terms of a development or a testing, then from the DevOps, we have to focus about having virtualization, which will be replacing physical machines. So try to utilize virtualization through which we can try to replicate or create our environment how much ever is needed. So in that, the DevOps focuses on one of the process improvement, which is called as containers. So in a virtualization specifically, now in the DevOps, one of the best practice that we have to follow is using container level virtualization. So we have many tools like Docker, where using which we are going to do a virtualization whenever we need a machine. So when a developer or a QA is trying to do some kind of work for the product development, and when they need an environment, rather than we spending up time and the effort in creating an environment, using the concept of containers, we can do a OS level virtualization very quickly. So by this, a user can replicate his environment or distribute his environment with different users. So that is when from the DevOps, we are going to focus majorly on the virtualization, in which container is a latest OS level technology which will help us to do the virtualization in a better way. Now, other than the virtualization, from an organization, if you look, taking care of all the machines is again a huge problem. So that is when, from the DevOps, we are going to focus towards cloud as a solution for many of this. So what exactly is this? So whenever a company is working on a product, they will be having their own data center or a lab in which they'll be having all the machines and they will be maintaining. Now, in that, whenever their business is growing and if they need more machine, then they have to spend a lot of time in configuring the machine and taking care of it. So whenever they want to scale up the business, then they should be able to add more machines immediately. Now, that is not going to happen if they have their own lab or the data center, because even though you're trying to procure everything, it goes through a lot of cycle. And then by the time you get all the requirements or the hardware and then configure it, then definitely it's going to take a lot of time. But when you're running a business and you want something to be done immediately, then that is where the time will be taken. Then we need a lot of effort in maintaining all these things, because if something goes wrong, then an organization has to assign a particular person or a group of people to take care of all those things. So that's how they will be having a group of people called IT or support, where they'll be working around the clock to maintain that. So that way, whenever they need a machine, they should be able to get it immediately. Or on the other side, for some purpose, if they do not need a lot of machines what they have, then unnecessarily, once they have procured everything, they will be taking care of the maintenance. So that's why when they don't need the machine, unnecessarily they have to maintain and have to pay for it. So that is when, from a requirement on an organization, they'll be moving towards a solution called cloud. And that's what in the DevOps culture, we focus on moving towards the infrastructure on DevOps. So where on the cloud, a cloud is nothing but a machine on the internet. So rather than having a machine in our premises, cloud is nothing but a machine on the internet, which is being given by a service provider, and it is being taken care by a particular service provider. And the advantage for us now in that is, whenever you need a machine, you just go to the service provider and ask him, and he'll be giving you a machine over the internet instantly. So that way, you're going to pay only for what is needed for you. And let's say you took 100 machines from the service provider, and suddenly after 1 week, you do not need 50 machines. Then you're going to stop use the 50 machines, and you're not going to pay for the 50 machines which you have not used. So that way, using the cloud, we will be accessing the machines or the resources, whatever is needed through the internet, and we are going to pay only what is needed for us. And that is going to be quite effective. And all these things will be maintained by the service provider. So that is how we can scale up the business, or whatever is needed to scale down the infrastructure, we can do it without any effort. And that's going to be a major advantage in the cost cutting for the organization. And is it only thing what the DevOps is going to focus? No, because now as a company, if you look, one of the requirement is to get the machine. Okay, for doing some activity, you need a machine. So either you create a machine through the virtualization concept, or you create a machine from the cloud. But after creating a machine for a user, he needs to configure inside something, right? So he might need some particular software or an application, or he needs some files in it. So how is that we are going to configure all this machine? So that is when DevOps focuses on another concept called configuration management, where using this configuration management, we are going to take care of maintaining the state of the machines, whatever that is there in the data center. So regardless of hundreds of machines that we are going to maintain the state of the machine in terms of what application is needed to install, or what software is needed in it, what file is needed, what should be the configuration for a user to log in and work. So that kind of configuration will be taken care by configuration management. So these are for creating a machine, and configuration management is for ensuring whatever is needed for us inside the machine will be available. So that is the configuration management. Now, as I said, it's not just enough from an organization just to create a machine and to configure, but at the end of the day, we also have to monitor it, because if there's something going wrong and we didn't notice it, then it is going to pile up and it'll be a bottleneck when we are trying to do a critical task. So that is when DevOps also focuses equally on doing a continuous monitoring of all those machines and the applications that we needed. So that way, regardless of whether it is a Windows or a Unix machine, we are going to continuously monitor them and keep a queue in which if there is a problem, we are going to proactively fix it to ensure the outage, whatever is going to happen, is quite minimal. So that is how through the DevOps, we are going to ensure that in case if a problem is coming, proactively you fix it and make sure you're bringing back all the system requirement back to the original position. So that's what in the DevOps culture, we are going to focus on the infrastructure management. Okay. So now by having these two, so if an organization is trying to move towards this culture where now either the entire organization is moving towards this culture, or there could be one particular group within an organization who are trying to adapt to this culture, where, as I said, this is nothing related to an individual person or a tool. This is a culture which is being driven from an organization. So that way, now if we are moving towards the DevOps culture, then the characteristics what we should be having is, the first thing is to be a generalist, where when I say a generalist, the mindset has to be overcome where a company doesn't want a person just to work on one task anymore. So as I said, if we have been working only on a development or on a QA or on a maintenance of a machine or an application, now as we move towards a culture called DevOps, we have to be ready to solve different kind of problems. So that's when they need generalists who can work on different kind of problems and try to provide an automation by solving all these things. So that's how when you say you're coming into this culture, we have to be ready to solve different kind of problems that could be on the development side or it could be on a system level. So adapting to a DevOps culture means that we need to be implementing some best practices like continuous integration and continuous delivery. And when you go towards the system, now we have to focus about implementing continuous monitoring so that whatever machines that we are having, how is that you're going to ensure that all of them are working and our service is not interrupted. Okay. And in that, the important characteristics of a DevOps culture is resilience, which means now, unlike what we have been doing so far, if there is a problem, we will always try to point to a particular person who can fix. But being into the DevOps culture, we have to take the responsibility of communicating it to all the respective stakeholders, because now in this culture, if we are working in this culture, we are not just focusing on one problem. As I said, right from the beginning to the end, whatever it takes for a product to get released and maintain it, we are going to work. And in that, we will be collaborating and we'll be communicating with different stakeholders like development team, QA team, IT team, and then release management. So there'll be a lot of people that we'll be interacting. So that way, now adapting to DevOps culture means it's not just that alarming if there is a problem, but how is that you are going to effectively communicate to your stakeholders to ensure that there is a problem, and for that, what are the solutions that you're going to give to make sure that the services are back to the given position so that there is not much of productivity loss. So such a kind of thing, what we have to implement is what we call it as resilience, which simply means when something goes wrong, how is that you're going to effectively communicate and bring back everything to its original position? And that's what we call it as resilience. So finally, DevOps is all about automation. So regardless of what kind of problem that we are facing, whether it could be a tool related or an infrastructure related, or it could be in a way how we are communicating between a user. So whatever it is, DevOps focuses on bringing in automation as much as possible. So these are the characteristics what an organization will be looking at if they are trying to implement a product in terms of a product in driving in a DevOps culture, or if they need someone to help them in a culture to drive everything in a DevOps way, and then they will be looking at these characteristics. So coming to engineer level, so how is that you're going to implement all those things? So that is when for each and every problem area that I was talking about, or a process that I was talking. Now there is a lot of tools that is available in a market using which you're going to provide a solution to it. So that way, now if you're focusing on continuous integration and continuous delivery, then there are a lot of tools, build tools, there are configuration management tools for your code, and then there are deployment tools which are available using which you'll be implementing it. Suppose if you're focusing on configuration management, then we have tools like Chef, Ansible, and Puppet using which you can provide a solution. And if you are trying to give a solution for virtualization in terms of containers, then we have tools like Docker and Vagrant using which you can do the containerization. And if you're focusing about moving to a cloud infrastructure, then we have different vendors or service providers like AWS or OpenStack using which you can provide a better cloud infrastructure. And in case if you're focusing on doing a monitoring of all the services and the machines, then we have a lot of tools like Nagios, Splunk, Surf, or even we can write our own tool to get it done. So that way, sorry, was there any question? Monica,
Yeah.
is there any question?
No questions.
Okay. Can you please mute?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm still hearing some background noise. Okay, thank you. So to continue, now for each problem area, we have a particular tool using which you will be trying to provide a solution or an automation to overcome the requirement. Okay, now, as I said, DevOps is not just focusing on one or two tools. Now, let's say if you're working on a database and you want to do some kind of improvement on the database, and then again, we have a lot of tools which adapt to the NoSQL concept or no schema concept. Now, in the same way, now there is something called log management which you will be working. So when you're working on machines and maintaining an application, there'll be a lot of data that we need to store somewhere. And now when a company is working, now they want data or statistics to prove something. Now that is when we need to take care of all the logs that is being putted by application that we are running. So that way, how is that you're going to effectively store the data, and from that data or from that logs, how is that you're going to extract certain data that is needed for the management. So all those things can be done effectively again by certain tools. So that's what we call it as log management. Okay, so maintaining the log and giving them the statistics, whatever is needed, can be done using the log management. So that way, DevOps is not stopping only with these tools. Anything that you're going to focus towards the improvement on the development side or on the operation side is what DevOps is going to focus. So that way, as I said in the previous slide, we have to be in a culture where we are open to solve different kind of problem being a generalist. So that's how these are some of the major problem areas where an organization needs help in getting their goal to be achieved. So that way, now whatever that I've listed is only those important things. But other than that, depending on a company, there could be many other problems where we should be ready to collaboratively work between the development and the operation group and provide a automation solution. So our work importantly is not just to work on one tool or two tools, because as I said, we are going to create as automation to solve something from end to end. So that way, being a DevOps engineer or into this culture, we'll be trying to provide an automation solution right from the beginning where a developer starts writing his code. So we'll be working along with the developer from the time when he starts writing the code to the time when it gets moved towards the QA to test. And then once everything is being tested, how is that you're going to deliver or deploy it? And then for that, whatever machine is needed, how is that you're going to configure that machine, and how is that you're going to take care of the machine? So all those things has to be done. So that is where we will be creating a workflow, that is an automation workflow, in which we'll be collaborating different kind of tools or integrating different kind of tools and provide a solution to a company, whatever is needed. Wherein, depending on the requirement, either you might be doing only a particular automation, or you might be doing an automation on the system side, or you could be doing a complete workflow. So that is how now, when you say you're going to be a DevOps engineer, particularly depending on what a company needs, you will be required to work on different set of tools and try to provide a DevOps workflow by combining or integrating these tools and provide a solution. Okay. Now, that is when, now it's not just enough for us to just learn any one or two tools, because some company might require you to work only on the development improvement. Some company might require you to work only on the system improvement, or some company might need you to work on both of them. So that is when it is quite important for us at this stage now, for someone, if we have to move into this culture, we have to be aware of all the problem solving areas that we have. So that is when, as a course that we call it as a DevOps Essentials course, we'll be trying to provide an conceptual way of understanding all the important areas that a company needs for someone to solve as part of the DevOps culture. So that is what we are going to do, where we'll be getting into the different areas which is being required by a company, where you will be using a particular tool and solving that. So in this course, all we are going to learn is the different kind of problem solving areas, and in that, what is a latest tool which is available in the market, and using that, how is that you're going to solve the particular problem by doing an automation. So that way, we'll be going through all the essentials that is needed for a person with some knowledge or without some knowledge on the basics. So we'll be touch basing everything from the scratch to a level where you will be above the intermediate. Okay, and in that way, we'll be trying to go not only through the tools, but we'll be trying to understand the different processes, best practices that is needed, and along with it, the different tools using which you will be trying to address a particular problem. And how is that you can automate everything together is what we are going to see as part of the course. Okay, so that's a major focus, where we'll try to learn all the essentials that is needed for someone to get into this culture. Okay, so that's what I had from my side. And is there any questions or any specific topic that you'd like to discuss? And I'm open for discussion.
Does it
Can you please go back to
involve
the previous slide?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Can you please come again?
Can you go back to the previous slide? The essentials.
Yes.
Okay. These are the modules you're going to cover before starting actual DevOps course, right? or it is a part of the course?
This is the part of the course.
All right. Just I want to know, as a my background, being an infrastructure engineer for almost 8 years. So just I want to know, I'm completely new to the coding, and if I want to be a DevOps engineer, from my point of view, I should know the coding as well, or Linux. What level of coding is required in this uh, uh, to be a DevOps engineer?
Okay, that's a good question. Now, usually people will get misguided in this. Okay, so let me be very clear. So when you say writing a code is different and writing a program is different. Okay, so when you say write a code, so what is that you're trying to do? Others, can you please mute? I hear a lot of background noise, if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you. So now, as part of DevOps, the major focus is on automation. So when you say automation, you are going to use a tool to solve some problem. But many times for doing an automation, a single tool will not be sufficient for us because the tool will be designed for a generic purpose. And when a company is trying to do some task, there might be some specific task which you need to get it done from a tool which will not be available. So that is when the generic automation that we can do is using scripting. So scripting is quite important, not just as a DevOps culture, but in terms of automation, where whenever you're doing some task, at that point of time, if a tool is not going to help you, or if you want to do some task on top of the tool, then you have to write a script. So that is where the coding, whatever you're talking, which is important in terms of automation in DevOps, is a scripting. So it is important for a person getting into this culture to be having a knowledge on some kind of scripting where he or she is comfortable in doing some task, because it's not just the automation which is needed for the company. We will be doing many kind of maintenance tasks. As you said, you have been onto the infrastructure. You would have been very much familiar that there could be many small to huge tasks which you will be doing on a daily basis. So that way, if you want to automate all your mundane tasks, once again, you need to write some kind of small scripts that can help you to ease your work. So that way, it is not related to coding in terms of a program, because we are not developers. There are a particular people or a set of people who are going to write only code. But now, when we are coming out of the mindset from being a developer into the DevOps culture, we are focusing on a problem what a company is requiring. So that way, if a developer is writing a code and a QA has to test it, how is that you're going to assist? So for that, whatever automation that you need, you will be doing. So in case if you want to implement some process over there, for that, if you need to write some kind of script which is needed, then you will be doing it. So that way, the mandatory requirement here in terms of automation is scripting, not any programming language. But to add to the point, it is not necessary that you should be knowing only scripting. The more and more you know, it's always better. So now the minimum requirement is you should be familiar with some kind of scripting. But in addition, if you are already a developer and you are moving to this culture, then it's an advantage for you where you can write still a better program when compared to the script, which can solve the problem. So that way, it's not mandatory that you should be knowing to write a program, but essentially a script to help you to do the automation.
Okay. Because I was in the impression that you should also know, because the development tools like .NET, Java, those kinds of development teams, right? They write a code. So even I need to, whatever the frameworks they use, whatever the methodologies they use, we don't know that, right? So just I want to know what level of programming language knowledge I should gain, or what level of expertise I have to get into the DevOps.
Yeah, as I said, you have to first understand what is that you're trying to solve and what an organization needs. So that way here, we are trying to solve the problem in terms of the automation which is needed for the process. So that way, scripting is essential. But as I said in some of the previous slide, we have to be a generalist. Now, if you don't want to limit yourself only to learn scripting, because now when you say the culture, DevOps is just a name. So what exactly a company needs? A company needs a person to work on different tasks. Okay, I could give you a simple example, like, let's say you want to hire a maid for your house to get something done. Now, will you be hiring a maid only for cooking separately, and will you be hiring a maid for cleaning the house separately? Now, or you need a maid just to wash the utensils. So that way, instead of hiring several maids, you'll just go and hire a single maid where he or she can take care of all the tasks. And in that, what is it you're going to do? You're going to obviously pay the person little higher or higher than what they have to take for a particular task. So the same thing you can compare with an organization. Again, it doesn't mean that we are going to be as a maid, but the concept is, now rather than paying a person only to do a task, what a company needs is to solve different problems and try to do different kind of tasks. So that is when, as I said, this culture which they have got into, where if we are working in it, we are not going to just do one task, we'll be doing different tasks. So in that, depending on our ability, we'll be growing. So now the bare minimum requirement for me is I should be doing automation. And in that, how we are doing automation, if I know to write a script, it's very well and good, I can write a script. Now, instead of the scripting, if I know to write a program, I can always write a program. So there's no limitation saying that this is how we should be doing. But the minimum requirement is you should be writing a script to get the things done. That is what is needed. But if you say that,
Even
hey,
the scripting is also not limited to what kind of script. It is depending on what solution you are finding and what kind of scripting you need. Those it is not a general scripting, right? It might be a VB script, it might be a PowerShell script, it might be a batch script, anything, right?
exactly. So when you talk about VB, again, that's more towards the code related. But now when I'm talking about automation, so simply if it is a replacement of your Linux environment, then it could be a bash. But as we know, bash is quite very basic. So that's when you have to move on to a better scripting. So that's when Perl or Python comes into the picture. So having a good knowledge on things like Perl or Python will be very helpful for you, where you will be automating your day-to-day task, or if there is a need for a process improvement, you can do it. But again, as I said, it's nothing related to only that, because when a company comes up and says that, hey, can you help me with creating a tool or an automation where I can solve this process? Now, minimum requirement is no scripts like Perl or Python through which you can do. But if you're really good in programming, where you can say that, hey, I can even do better than that, I can learn Java or C++, or I can even get into Node.js and can do some wonderful things, then there's no limitation. That's what I said. The more and more that you know and get into it, it's better for your career growth. But as a bare minimum requirement, you should be doing automation. For that, it's quite essential that you should be aware of some latest and the most modern scripting like Perl or Python. In that specifically, I would suggest Python, because that's what market is moving towards.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, yes, Avi. As I said, now there's no point to be specific, saying that the question might come, hey, I have Perl, I have Python, I have Ruby, which one should I learn? Now, again, as we were discussing a few seconds back, it's dependent on the company. So the requirement will be changing, but you have to be in a situation where learn any one of the scripting very good. And in that, if a company wants you to work on something else, you should be able to easily correlate and get these things done. And in that way, the current market is completely requiring Python. Okay. Now, there are many reasons behind it. That doesn't mean that Python is the only best scripting, but market is moving towards Python. So that's why it's quite essential that if you say you know automation, and especially in the DevOps, if you say you know scripting, then I would prefer only to say that you know Python very well. So that's why it's important that as part of today's market requirement, Python is the scripting tool which everyone is asking. Okay, that's a good question. So, Pratish, what's the time that you will be covering? Now, as I said, as I'm seeing here, each and every tool is needed. So practically, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking a week time for each tool and we'll be covering. So it'll take anywhere between 6 to 7 weeks to touch base on all the essential topics that is needed. Because again, here we are not focusing as a developer, because each tool that you have seen here, now this itself we can take and we can get into the top administration level by talking a month in each one of them. But now what we are going to do is we are going to talk on all the essentials that is needed from the basic or from the scratch to a level which is above, intermediate, so that whatever is needed, everything. And with the help of that, if you want to get into the most advanced topic, you can solve the problems by yourself. So that's the level that we are going to focus. So it's going to take pretty much around 6 to 7 weeks. uh, I would suggest, please write a mail about the details, so that we can share you the topic exactly on what each topic in specific to each modules that we are going to cover. So specific to timings and the topics internally. And now I cannot keep explaining those topics. It'll take a lot of time for me to explain. So feel free to write a mail, and I'll make sure someone will get back to you with the specific details. But anything other than that on the technical side? Any generic questions?
Yeah, one more thing is that regarding scripting, if you know the Python's basics, is it good to learn advanced as well?
Exactly. Now, if needed, you should be doing the advanced. But if the company doesn't need you, then there's, for the within a given time. Now, the way that, basically what we focus on the course, especially on the DevOps, rather than focusing, 1 month only on one tool and being so strong, now market requires many things differently. So that's when we have to help you to market yourself, where you don't just say that I know one tool. Now, being a DevOps engineer, you have to say I know different tools, so through that I can provide different kind of automation solutions. So that way, whatever is essential is what we'll be covering. And in that, as I said, now if you know the essentials, then from that, if you spend a little more time, if you have understood everything clearly, it'll be better for you to get into the advanced, because now you know what is what. So if there is a requirement coming to do something advanced, you know what is that you have to know. So just go and spend a little amount of time in learning and get the things done. So that's the best way to learn and keep moving, because as we know, the tools is never ending. The tools will be there today, and tomorrow there'll be a new tool coming up. So what is the best way to learn? So don't sit completely and spend the time in learning ABCs to the end of all the tools. So you should be learning only the essentials of all the tools. Anything that you do, understand the fundamentals and the concepts. So through that, as you keep moving into newer and newer tools, it'll be easy for you to get adapted. So that's the way that we'll be focusing towards, more scenario based. Any other questions?
One more question is that as the session proceeds further, will you be sending the recording of the session?
Okay, good. Thanks for bringing it up. So this is the way that we work. So we'll be recording the sessions on a daily basis, and we'll be sharing all the recordings that we go to the class on a daily basis, so that we'll be putting it into a Google Drive and we'll share it. So any point of time, if you want to cross-check or if you want to practice it once again at your free time, then you can go through those videos and practice. And I'll be providing you whatever materials is needed on a module basis that will help you to learn more things. And as the need comes, I'll be giving you exercises that you can focus on. So these kind of things will be happening module by module, so that will help you to practice, and they'll provide you more documents that you can go through in addition to what we are seeing in the class, and understand the subject more.
Yeah, I have a question. Are the sessions starting from tomorrow?
No, Sharat, not tomorrow exactly. We might take a few days, so probably it'll be like early next week. So get in touch with us. I'll let you know that when we'll be starting. So, but it might take another 3 to 4 days.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So, is there any other questions?
Yeah, hello?
Yes. Is there
Did
any
you
other?
say any reference to whom?
No, I'm just asking. Is there any other questions?
No.
The audio is getting muted in between. So sometimes it is like we are not able to hear anything for 10 to 15 seconds.
Okay, sorry. There could be some network issue. I was just asking. Is there any question?
No.
Okay, no problem. So I'll stop it here in case if you don't have any questions. And again, thanks for joining. And what I'll do is I'll try to share this recording in case if you guys want to go through it again. And feel free to write the email. And we'll be getting back to you in terms of when we are starting, what are the course topics that is needed, what is the duration, or any other specific topics that you have in your mind. Feel free to ask, and if you need any other discussion, I'll be happy to have one more session to discuss on that topic specifically. But other than that, thanks for joining, and it was really nice talking to you.
Adam?
Yes.
Adam? Yeah, actually, I forgot to ask you one thing. I'm sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
So, like, you're gonna cover the AWS topics too, right?
Yes, again, AWS specifically, I'll be talking on the AWS essentials because we are not focusing as an AWS administrator, because AWS administration is again a specific task. But when you say you're a DevOps engineer on your day-to-day activity, you will be working on AWS. So that way, what and all you need to know, there are a lot of services which you need to know to do some kind of automation. So that way, those kind of essential requirements that is needed on the cloud that I'll be going through in the AWS class.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
No problem. All right. Any other questions, just in case? If not, I'll just stop it. All right. So thanks again. I'll talk to you guys again.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.